Alright, for this Form SS4 tutorial, I want to talk about EIN applications for non-U.S. entities. So one common question I get is always, can a non-U.S. company, whether it's a corporation, a partnership, a trust, can they obtain an EIN, so a U.S. tax ID number? And the answer is absolutely yes, right? There's just different procedures that you have to follow because you have non-U.S. entities. So I'm going to go through the SS4. I've got a full example here of a non-U.S. corporation, and then also one slide here covering the fact pattern that we're going to look at with the SS4, but also highlighting some of the general EIN application rules, right? So EIN applications, I'll just summarize for U.S. entities first, then we'll talk about non-U.S. entities, what are the options, and then we'll look at the form. So for U.S. entities, and this includes U.S. estates and trusts, U.S. entities with a U.S. person that's the responsible party is generally the easiest to do because you can use the online portal. So the IRS has this online portal, and within that online portal you can enter the information on the U.S. entity. So the name of the entity, the state it was formed, what type of entity it is, and when you complete the application, the IRS will assign you the EIN immediately. Right, so you'll get an EIN immediately, you can download the PDF, and you're ready to go. So this is an application if it's a U.S. entity and the responsible party has a U.S. tax ID number, so an ITIN or an SSN. Now, if you have a U.S. company, like let's say a U.S. LLC, but the owner, so the responsible party, does not have an ITIN or SSN, then you can't use the online portal. And so if that's the case, then you would use a similar option or one of these options that we're going to discuss below for non-U.S. companies. And then with respect to the online portal again, if the application is for a non-U.S. company, it can never use the online portal, at least not as of 2023. And that's even if the responsible party is a U.S. person. So if you have a U.S. citizen opens a company in the Cayman Islands and they want to get a tax ID for that Cayman Islands company, even though that U.S. person has a U.S. tax ID, they cannot use the online portal because the entity for which they're applying is a non-U.S. company. So now let's talk about EIN applications for non-U.S. companies. So as of 2023, there are really three options. So you can complete the SS4 and either fax it, mail it, or apply for the EIN over the phone. So fax, in our experience, is generally kind of the easiest, right? So you complete the SS4. There is a fax number within the instructions where you can submit it to the IRS via fax. It takes a couple business days, but they'll assign the EIN, they'll write it on the form itself, and then they'll send it back to you via fax, and they'll send you a confirmation letter, a CP-575 notice, will be mailed to the address on the SS4. Now, the other option is to do the same, complete the SS4, print it out, sign it, and just mail it to the IRS. Now, if you mail it to the IRS, it's going to take a little longer, right? Because it takes a while for them to open their mail, process it, and then again, they're not sending it back to you via fax. They will mail the confirmation letter. And then lastly, this option is available to non-U.S. companies only, is you can complete the SS4, sign it, date it, and then call the IRS over the phone and speak with an agent directly. Now, when you're speaking with an agent over the phone, they're going to provide you a fax number and ask you to fax it to them, their personal line. They'll go through it with you over the phone, and they'll assign the EIN while on the phone call, right? So if you need an EIN assigned the same day, and you can manage to get through, you might wait on hold for a while, but the phone call is effectively a same-day assignment. It just takes it could be a couple hours, right? You could call, you could be on hold for 2 hours. Sometimes you can't even get through. All right, so in this one, we're going to complete the SS4, and we're going to fax it, right? So we're going to set it up as if we're going to fax this to the IRS. So what are the fact pattern for why we're even doing this? So we have John taxpayer. Let's say he's a non-U.S. citizen. So he's a citizen and resident of the United Kingdom, and he forms a limited company in Anguilla. So Anguilla is a small little island out in the Caribbean. It is its own country, and you can set up companies there. And it is quite popular because they are generally tax-free. At least locally, you won't pay any taxes. And so for those reasons, John set up the company there. Now, the limited company is characterized as a corporation for U.S. tax purposes. And John is looking to open a U.S. bank account for this entity, and his tax advisor has told him, well, you might also want to be filing protective tax returns. So these are Form 1120-F protective returns for those years. So in order to open the account and even file these returns, you need an EIN. So that's why John is applying for an EIN for this entity. All right, so let's have a look at the SS4. So the SS4 is just one page, right? So not a lot of fields to complete on here, but we'll go through all the relevant ones given these circumstances. So the first one, obviously the name of the entity. So John set up this company, Not Real Company Limited. So legal name of the entity on the top there, and then the mailing address. So he has an address set up, mail forwarding address in Anguilla. So it's the Valley, Anguilla. That's where the company is located, and that's where business is going to be conducted. Now, on line 6, this is a required field. It says county and state where business conducted. Now, in the U.S., we have concepts such as counties and states, but a lot of foreign countries don't, right? So just put whatever is most appropriate, right? So if it's a province or a district or maybe just a city, enter whatever you think is most accurate there, and that will suffice. Now, 7A and 7B, these are also required fields. So the responsible party here is going to be John, and that's because he is the sole shareholder. He's the officer, director of the company, so it makes sense that he's the responsible party. Now, in 7B, if the responsible party has a U.S. ID number, so an SSN or ITIN, they can enter that here. If they do not, because they are not a U.S. person, that is okay. They can simply enter foreign U.S., which is an okay placeholder, or they could put non-resident alien, something to indicate that this is a non-U.S. person. Do not leave this blank, right? So if you're a non-U.S. person and you don't have the U.S. ID number, don't simply leave this blank. You have to put something here to let the IRS know what is your status for U.S. tax purposes. You should not put them in a position where they have to guess. Line 8A, is this application for an LLC or foreign equivalent? The answer is no. So lines 8B and 8C we can skip. Now, type of entity, this is pretty straightforward. We know it's a corporation under local law. It would be characterized as a corporation for U.S. purposes. So we've indicated corporation, and then the type of tax return that the company would be filing, if any, is the 1120-F. Now remember, the 1120-F filing, if you're not engaged in U.S. trade or business and have no ECI, you don't have to file these. But you should put what the appropriate tax return filing would be if you had to. And so that's why we've indicated 1120-F. Now we're going to be filing the 1120-Fs anyway because we want to do the protective filings. So that's why it's appropriate that we did that. Now, 9B, if a corporation name the state or foreign country. So we are in Anguilla, and then we've put down the province or the district where the company is located. Now, we've indicated in box 10 here that we are applying for this because we started a new business, so we put consulting. Now, you could put a variety of other options, right? If it was purely banking reasons, you could put check banking and then to open U.S. account, something to that effect. But we did start a new business, so it makes more sense that we would indicate, okay, we started a business, it's a consulting business. The date of incorporation for us was October 8, 2022, and we are operating on a calendar year, so we put December. Now, in box 13 and 15, for these, we don't have any U.S. employees. What they're getting at here is they're trying to kind of get a sense of when are we going to start filing forms 941 and 940. Those are U.S. payroll tax returns. If we have U.S.-based employees and payroll, we're not going to have that. So that's why we just put zeros across all the board here. And, we're not going to, we haven't paid any wages yet, nor do we anticipate doing so in the U.S. Anytime soon. So type of business, principal activity of business, consulting, that's fine. And then in box 18, we've indicated no, we have never applied for or received an EIN for this entity before. Now the third party designee section, this would be completed if a third party was applying for this EIN on your behalf. In our case here, John is doing this by himself, right? So he hasn't hired an accountant or a lawyer to do this. He's completing it by himself. So the third party designee can just be left blank. And then in the part down here, we would indicate, okay, John is signing this on behalf of the company, and what's his title, right? So he's the CEO of this entity. You could put CEO and shareholder, that would be fine. And then indicate contact information for John, right? So phone number, fax number. And then I always like to attach a copy of the certificate of incorporation, articles of organization behind the form. And this is to make it clear to the IRS where the company was set up and it was in fact formed, right? A lot of times I've had issues where the IRS will return or they won't process it, and they'll say, well, we needed a copy of your LLC certificate of formation or articles of organization. And even though it doesn't say you need that in the form instructions, they still won't process it unless they have it. So because I've had that happen in the past, now just out of habit, I always include, whether it's a U.S. company or a foreign company, include this behind the application form, and that will just eliminate the possibility that they might not process it, and then you have to call and ask what's going on. Just out of habit now, and I recommend people do that too. It's not going to hurt to provide that additional information. So again, this is not a real certificate issued by Anguilla, right? It's close in format to what they would do, but it is just an example certificate, not real, company limited, company numbers all zeros, right? So it's not real. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Again, this is going to be printed out, signed, and then we're going to fax it to the IRS, but you could also print it out, sign it, and mail it to them, or we could print it out, sign it, and have it in front of us, and then again call the IRS and go through it over the phone with them. But John decided he didn't want to sit on hold with the IRS for a couple hours, so he's just going to fax it to them and wait for it to come back via fax as well. All right, so hope that was helpful. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thank you.